Hi, today we will talk about IFRS 15. Let me introduce the background and benefit of IFRS 15. For the international adoption of IFRS, worldwide accounting diversity created a challenge for international business operation and investment. Accounting standard setters and the government have been under pressure to reduce the diversity and align accounting requirements worldwide. So, revenue is the key data for user of financial statement to access their performance and financial status. But IFRS and US GAAP is particularly troublesome. If there is a set of detailed guidelines on revenue recognition, the comparability of the entity's performance and financial status can be enhanced. So, International Finance Report Statement, IFRS 15, is updated under these backgrounds. Then, let me talk about the benefit of the IFRS 15. First, one global revenue recognition standard. The adoption rate of the International Financial Report Standards is increased around the world. However, the United States, which has the largest economy in the world, has not adopted the IFRS. Therefore, the International Accounting Standard Board, IASB, and the Financial Accounting Standard Board, FASB, collaborate to develop a compatible set of accounting standards. The board issued these new revenue recognition standards. Its success would represent a big step toward establishing one consistent set of quality global accounting standards. The second benefit is financial statement reporting consistency. The old revenue standard has multiple accounting revenue recognition standards. The General Accepted Accounting Principle, GAAP, of the US have more than 118 articles on revenue recognition, while the International Accounting Standard Board has IAS 11, IAS 18, and IFRS 13. This varying standard has created inconsistency between the reporting of the financial statements, and the new revenue recognition standards are meant is to solve this problem. The new standard provides one framework which should produce more comparable financial statements. I would argue, however, that the number of the estimation and the judgment allowed in the new standards may affect the consistency of financial statement reporting.
And then I will talk about the objective and the 5-step model framework and the disclosure of the IFRS 15. First, the objective of IFRS 15 is to establish the principles that an entity should apply to report useful information to users of financial statements about the natural amount, timing, and uncertainty of the revenue and cash flows arising from a contract with a customer. And the 5-step model framework is the principle of IFRS 15 is that an entity will recognize revenue to depict the transfer of promised goods or services to customers in an amount that reflects the consideration to which the entity expected to be entitled in exchange for those goods or services. This core principle is delivered in 5-step model framework. First, identify the contract with customer. Second, identify the performance obligations in the contract. Third, determine the transaction price. Fourth, allocate the transaction price to the performance obligations in the contract. And last, recognize revenue when the entity satisfies a performance obligations. And then I will talk about the disclosure. According to objective of IFRS 15, an entity should disclose qualitative and quantitative information about all the following. First, its contracts with customers. Second, the significant judgments and changes in the judgments. and made in applying the guidance to those contracts and any assets recognized from the cost of obtain or fulfill a contract with a customer. Entities will need to consider the level of detail necessary to satisfy the disclosure objective and how much emphasis to place on each of the requirements. An entity should aggregate disclosures to ensure that useful information is not obscured. In order to achieve the disclosure objective stated above, the standard introduces a number of new disclosure requirements.
Okay, in this part, I will introduce the application and the disadvantage of the IFRS 15, and then I will give you guys a summary about the whole presentation. The standard should be applied in an entity's IFRS financial statement for an annual reporting period beginning on or after 1st January 2018. Earlier application is permitted. An entity that chose to apply IFRS 15 earlier than 1st January 2018 should disclose this fact in its relevant financial statement. When first applying IFRS 15, entity should apply the standard in full for the current period, including retrospective application to all contracts that will not yet complete at the beginning of that period. In respect of the prior period, the transaction guidance allows the entities an option to apply IFRS 15 in full to prior periods, or retain the prior period's figures as reported under the previous standards. Recognition the cumulative effect of applying IFRS 15 as an adjustment to the opening balance of equity as at the date of initial application. And then I will talk about the disadvantage of IFRS 15. The most noteworthy disadvantage of IFRS 15 relate to the cost related to application by multinational companies, which comprise of changing the international system to make it compatible with the new reporting standard, transaction cost, and etc. The issue of regulating IFRS in all countries, as it will not be possible due to various reasons beyond IASB or IASC controls, and they cannot enforce the application of IFRS by all countries of the world. And another disadvantage of IFRS is that IFRS is quite complex and costly, and if the adoption of IFRS needed or required by a small and medium-sized business, it will be a big disadvantage for a small and medium-sized entities, as they will be hit by the large transaction cost, and the level of complexity of IFRS might not be absorbed by small or medium-sized entities. In summary, and even though the company and the countries are incurring the huge transaction cost, the benefit of IFRS can not be seen until a later point due to the fact that it takes some years to the harmonization. And to have the sufficient years to financial statement to be prepared under the IFRS to improve the consistency. However, the IFRS 15 benefit the worldwide financial statement, such as promoting the one global revenue recognition standard and the financial statement reporting consistency. And I believe in the future, with increasing applying of the IFRS 15, the more comparability of the financial statement will have, and it will bring us more positive influence.